my friend Marty. He wants to split the party. He wants blue folks in red states to vote green. I can see his point, though. I really gotta say, no, we can't have another 2016. It seems nothing beats orange. Nothing even freaking rhymes with it. What's a battered nation supposed to do? His Royal Orange Highness, he does love to divide us. We've got to stick together and vote blue.
It's a little Steve Goodie from his album What I Did During My Pandemic Vacation. You can go to stevegoodie.com. That's Goodie. And I know Steve is traveling all over the country performing right now, so follow him on Facebook and find out where he'll be. And maybe we need to take our show to Iowa and catch up with the highest-ranking Democrat in the state of Iowa. State Auditor Rob Sand joins us. Hey, Rob, how have you been?
I'm pretty good. How about yourself, Patti?
I've been all right. I think sometimes that when I grow up, I would like to be an auditor because I just fraud and waste make me insane, and I sense that that's what drives you every single day. I mean, not fraud and waste. It's not like, yay, I'm going to find some more fraud and waste. But hunting it down is an important job, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it truly is. It's one of those things that's just, it should be a bipartisan issue all the time. This misuse of tax dollars, it undermines the idea of self-governance in our Constitution because it makes people think we can't trust each other, so we need to have, a king, a queen, a dictator to just go in there and take care of everything. But the bottom line is we have to have the ability to trust each other, and we will have to have checks and balances for the people who are in power. Because if we don't, then they're going to be able to abuse it a lot more easily. How
complicated is it for you having a staunchly Republican governor and a majority in the legislature that are GOP? And how much is that tie your hands in accomplishing your mission?
I mean, I am happy to work with anyone. So from my standpoint, hey, I've called every legislator who has won a race since 2018 to join the legislature and congratulated them before they actually got sworn in. We just called to say, hey, this is Rob Sand. I'm your state auditor. Congrats. What made you run? What's your family like? And okay, now you've got my phone number and I work in room 111 in the Capitol, so reach out anytime.
Right. And that should be how anybody in elected office and how we should all be is look.
Yeah. But what is so frustrating about that is exactly your point. It shouldn't matter what your party is. Views, yes, we're going to disagree, right? We have disagreements that are meaningful. But what's really frustrating about that is, while that's my approach, that has not been the approach of the legislature here in Iowa nor the governor. They actually passed a bill that limits our ability to find waste, fraud, and abuse by creating a long list of documents we are no longer going to have access to.
Ugh, I can't even. I mean, for the people. Yeah. For the people who say that government doesn't work or that that it's wasteful, and then to want to close the door to even being able to make sure that we aren't being wasteful and that we are being efficient is absolutely is mind-boggling.
Oh, that's exactly it. If you have a problem with a report I issued, by all means, tell people what your problem with it is. Criticize me if you think you need to criticize me. But to take forever after and limit the auditor's office ability to uncover waste, fraud, and abuse is beyond the pale. And really think about this from the viewpoint of someone who has access to tax dollars in the state of Iowa. If you have a list of documents that are hard for the auditor's office to get a hold of, that's a menu, Patti. What kind of money would you like to steal tonight? Here's the menu. Here's all the areas where you can steal with effectively impunity. Where it's going to be much, much harder for the auditor to dig in on what you're doing.
I mentioned that when I grew up, I would love to be an auditor, and you are encouraging young people to be aware of what these programs are. Tell us a little bit about PI, because this is fascinating to me.
It's a really fun program. So I stopped at a high school today to award them the certificate for best performing school district in their class size. And the idea behind the program is pretty straightforward. PI stands for Public Innovations and Efficiencies. And what we've done is create a very basic checklist of good government practices that help save money. The more of them you implement, the more money you're going to save. And then we have a pie contest every year. And so I actually brought an apple pie as well as a certificate to Greene County today, to Jefferson, to deliver it to that school. And we give these awards out all over the state every year to our best performers. It's fun and it's delicious.
I love that, because so I mentioned when we started that I've been aware of inefficiencies. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the migrant crisis that we're having in Chicago. The governor of Texas has been putting refugees and asylum seekers on buses, and they arrive in Chicago. And there was a study, and it was done by journalists, who found out that in a 4-week period, $7.2 million were spent at one place. The wages for the people, it was independent contractor, wages hourly, like one security guard was getting a massive amount, like some of the wages were $50 to $146 an hour before overtime. And one security guard was working 12-hour shifts 7 days a week for like several weeks on end. And those are those the kinds of things that you look at and you go, okay, what are we doing here? How are we managing this?
You know, we had a situation like that in Iowa here recently, and this again goes back to the should be stuff that's regardless of party. We had a county auditor who was a Democrat who was paying election workers for more than 24 hours in a day.
No, see,
just like, look, we can't. I don't care what you thought made this a defensible idea. There is no defending it. That's ridiculous.
And then, so what is the process for that then? Like, hey, you need to have a checklist, like the schools, the school districts. Here's your checklist. Are you holding, up your end of the bargain on this?
Yep, and that's a piece of it. We always have a list of recommendations for a fraud investigation like that. Things they should be doing in order to make sure it doesn't happen again. And with pie, for the efficiency side, when we're trying to emphasize the good and have more good happen, it's kind of the same idea. I mean, the heart of the program is what we call the pie chart. It's about a 10-page checklist of just basic money-saving things that the public sector can do to save our tax dollars. I always like to say it's a wonderful thing. We're always going to have these eternal arguments about whether or not we are going to do a tax cut or do something to provide more services. That's a much easier argument to have when you've actually saved the money already and you have a pile of it sitting there.
Are you able to quantify how much can be saved through, the work that you do? If I guess it's kind of a hard number because it's somewhat intangible, unless everyone's being honest about how much they've wasted or how much fraud they've committed. Right? It's hard to quantify.
We can safely say that we can help local entities unlock hundreds of millions of dollars of savings in the long run if they participate in pie. Some of the items that are on the checklist are very big ticket items that'll save hundreds of thousands of dollars just for that one alone. And so if you have enough, we've got 99 counties in Iowa. If you have enough, we've got 330 school districts. If you have enough of these entities doing it, you're going to be in the hundreds of millions of dollars range.
Would you say, obviously there are people who are going to take advantage of any program or system, but on the waste side, is it just a matter of laziness, not doing enough research, giving, financial, sort of help to friends? What would you say where that comes from? I think a big piece of it is laziness for sure. I think a lot of it is, someone says, oh, this is what I want to see happen here, and other people are not willing to question it. But I always go to this, too. My faith is very important to me. And, in the Lord's Prayer, we try to pray every day, lead us not into temptation. And I do think that a big piece of government waste, fraud, and abuse is a lack of oversight, a lack of willingness to confront people who are doing wrong. And what you get from that is that people are led into temptation. If they think no one's looking, they look around and they go, "Hey, I've got all this money here. No one's really paying attention to what I'm doing. I could make it all mine." And I always tell the story of this one specific woman, Jessica, who
She had the same job at two public entities. From one, she embezzled over $200,000. From the other, nothing.
Ugh.
And the difference was, at the place that she didn't embezzle any money, there was a guy on the board that would ask for the bank statements every month. That was it. That's all it took, was just her sense of the fact that somebody was looking. And so if we do that for each other, if we do the work to try to help each other avoid temptation, then I think we're going to end up in a much better place.
Well, you sound reasonable. I don't know how you do it every day, because I would be looking at these, these spreadsheets and go, okay, come on, folks. What can people do, in wherever they live, to challenge their electeds or, their local government to do better in this sense?
That's a really good question. I think that showing up for meetings and paying attention matters. Honestly, I agree with the idea that oftentimes the amount of work is underappreciated that people do in these positions. And so start if you're going to introduce yourself to somebody, start with a thank you. Start with something that they're doing that you like. Establish and continue to be someone who is worth listening to because you're actually a reasonable person. You figure out fairly quickly that there's some people that there's just no pleasing them. And if there's no pleasing them, then it's harder to convince yourself that you should make the effort to please them. We can always tell ourselves, well, a blind squirrel finds an acorn every now and then, and so I should acknowledge that this person's right. But in a situation where we've got a lot of demands and a lot of competing interests, we should try to be the kind of citizens that are reasonable enough that when we have something positive or negative to say, it actually is given weight because we're willing to say both of them.
Outstanding. I really appreciate that. I appreciate your insight. I appreciate the work that you do, and that you'll join us every once in a while and shed some light on this really important work that you do. Thank you so much.
Happy to do it, Patty.
Thank you. Have a great Halloween season. I love your Halloween pick.
Hey, thanks.
The plumber's crack on the scarecrow cracked me up. Thank you.
It was amazing, wasn't it? Amazing.
So well done. Have a great evening, and we'll talk to you again soon. My best to your family. Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's take a break here. When we come back, we're going to talk to my sister in SAG-AFTRA and talk about our ongoing strike. The negotiating team is back at the bargaining table with AMPTP, and let's catch up after this on WCPT 820, Heartland Signal, and KTNF 950 AM.